Hello everyone, Matt from Model Minutes here, and welcome back to the workbench for another unboxing. Today I'm taking a look at this, the Curtiss Tomahawk Mk.IIB in 1/72 scale from Airfix. So join me as I get stuck inside the box and see what this kit is like. So this is actually one of my favourite kits to build, and I've built a number of these already on the channel, and when I was looking back through my catalogue I realised that I haven't actually unboxed it, so let's change that today. So starting off on the outside, this you can tell is the gift set version. There have been single releases as well, but it is a gift set because it comes with some paint and things included. Top left we have an item code of A68220 and we have an image here which indicates there's only one paint scheme. If we flip over to the back we'll find our decal and painting instructions which are printed in full colour. As it's a gift set it's a little bit more simplified, and you can see there are only a handful of decals to apply, and we have our different colour callouts down here listed. Airfix are quite good at telling you tooling information as well, and you can see down here that it says that the design and tooling for this kit dates from 2011, and the actual decal scheme and design also dates from that period. It isn't actually manufactured in 2011, this is a more recent release, but this is something they've kind of got in their back catalogue and that they've released periodically. If we flip over to this thin edge here, we can see some information about the actual Tomahawk, and we've got some dimensions. The length is 134.5 millimeters, the wingspan is 158, and there are 47 parts included. We then also have another image of the paint scheme included, and then we have a Cartograph logo, so this indicates that this contains Cartograph decals, and they are usually to a really high standard. Airfix thinks this is a skill level 1, so it should be easy to build, but that doesn't always take into account the painting. I would imagine if you're a beginner and this was your first kit, this could be a little bit daunting, trying to get the different colours nice and neat, but no worse than some of the German schemes they also think is a level 1. This edge here features some safety warning information, and the thin edges have the same information we've already seen to identify it on the shelf. No flying hour coupons are included though. They don't tend to include them on these gift set kits like this. As you can see, I've not had this one open, so this will be a nice treat for us. So what I want to do first is look at the accessories. We have one paintbrush here. This is a number 2. Generally, these Humbrol brushes are absolutely fine, and they'll do the job. They're a bit generic, so it might not be great for large areas or very fine details, but they kind of meet in the middle and do okay. So they're not too bad. Then we have our other bag of stuff. So a tube of poly cement, not the best cement in the world, but it generally does the job. And in my case, the tube is still liquid. Hang on, he says it's reluctant to come out. Yeah, it's still liquid in there. There's still a gel coming out there, so that's all right, usable, but I'll probably use something else. And then we have 4 pots of paint. 29 is a dark earth, 93 is our sand color. We have 157, which is our like azure blue, and then we have 33, which is a black. So there's 2 different designs of pot here, and these were technically the new design of pot. They don't have like the flappy lid, and there was a problem where they don't close properly, and there's an air bubble and it dries out. So I'm going to have a quick look and see if they are still usable. That one appears to be wet, but it is going to dry out, so that one would need a bit of a mix to revive it. The sand color is a paste at this point, so you can see this one has started to dry out. You could save that one with some water or some thinner and potentially revive it. And then 29 you can see has already leaked a little bit, and this is our dark earth color and is drying out. So yeah, that could be saved, but I'll probably just use some paint that I've already got. This is the sort of, it was like an old style pot which they've kind of reverted back to, and these shouldn't have a problem. This should be perfectly fine. Yeah, that's fine. That's completely usable in there. So yeah, Humbrol I think are getting rid of these pots, but because you can see that there is a clear problem with these 3 not being quite up to the same standard as that one. So I can imagine if this was your first kit, you would be very disappointed. But if you do have a problem with your paints, do contact Airfix Customer Spares and get them to send you some replacements. Moving on to the instructions. Up to the normal format from Airfix, we have some information about the actual aircraft at the top, and then some safety warning information and a few hints and tips. Turning over, we have a key to the different symbols that we might encounter during our build, and if we continue a little bit further, we then come into our actual assembly stages. This is a relatively simple kit to construct, as I've done it quite a few times before. We start off by gluing together the fuselage halves, and you can see we paint the inside surfaces, and then we assemble our propeller, and then we attach it. It is a slightly older tooling, so it still has this design where if you want it to rotate freely, you have to install it here. I'll probably leave it off and then glue it on at the end. Moving on down, we install the cockpit floor, and there is an option to drill out a couple of holes for a display stand. Display stands are not included. It is sold separately. However, I've not seen that display stand on sale anywhere for a very long time now, so I'm not sure what's happened to it. After this, we install our control panel, and there is a decal for that, our pilot seat and the control column. And then we basically bring these elements together. The fuselage gets glued onto the lower wing, and the two upper wing surfaces are joined on as well. The engine sort of cowling on the bottom, the exhaust flap, has two different options. It could be posed in an open position or a closed position, depending on your preference. Then coming on to the top of the nose, you add the upper sort of where the nose guns are, and also the chin intake. And then after that, we add our tail surfaces. Landing gear has the option to be raised or lowered depending on your preference, and as you can see, the lowered option looks like it has some flattened edges on the tires of the wheels, so make sure you get them in the right place because otherwise they won't line up with the floor. If we move on down, there are some extra details to go in the cockpit. This is like the backrest for the pilot, and there is a pilot included, which is great value because, you know, not all aircraft kits have pilots, but if you're going to display this in a flying pose, it's always great to have someone at the controls. Cockpit canopy gets installed here, but it only comes in a closed position. The side windows can be added, engine exhausts, and the pitot tube on the wing, not forgetting the little landing light which goes on the other side of the wing. So all in all, not a complicated looking kit. Instructions are reasonably easy to follow. Being a sort of gift set, they should be quite easy to understand. This brings us on to our decal sheet. Actually, this is quite a spaced out decal sheet. Normally things are a lot closer together on here. But you can see we have them printed to a nice quality. Not a great deal of them. Control panel, registration codes, shark's teeth for the nose, roundels. They're all printed to a nice quality. I can't see any tears or blemishes. Should be relatively easy to do. I don't generally have any problems with cartograph decals. Registration is pretty good as well. Yeah, so should be pretty simple, the application of the decals on this one. And then that brings us on to the plastic parts, which you can see come contained within this clear bag. And it appears to me that this might be a slightly older release of the kit because it's in the blue plastic rather than the dark grey that we've had recently. In a separate bag, you get the clear parts. So let's take a look at the clear parts first. There we are. So one small sprue of clear parts contains our landing light, cockpit canopy, and the side windows. The moulding is generally okay, but there is, I'm going to use the brush, there is a small sort of scuff on this one. It's like a bit of dust. Yeah, there's a little tiny amount of almost like a residue on this, which I've just removed, which was on it inside of the bag. Tiny little scratches in a few places, but nothing too detracting. The plastic is generally quite clear, you can see through it quite nicely, and the moulded framework is relatively proud, so if you were going to mask that yourself using a knife to cut around your tape, it would be reasonably easy to do so. Not much in the way of flash. Plastic feels relatively dense, not particularly greasy. Yeah, so plastic clear parts, pretty good. This brings us on to the remainder of the kit, and you have two sprues. One small thing I've immediately noticed, and this tends to be a little bit of a common theme with these sort of gift sets, you can see that there is some mold release on here. I've experienced it on other kits from Airfix in these sort of gift set boxings. I think because they manufacture so much of them, the factory tends to be a little bit too more liberal with the mold release to help the plastic parts get out, and you can see that there is actually like this coating of grease in a few places. So this is a little bit greasy. It would benefit from a wash to remove that so that your paint can stick properly, but the plastic feels reasonably dense. There is a little bit of flex to it, but yeah, it is a little bit greasy. It's definitely worth a wash if you've got one of these. On this sprue then, this is sprue B, we have our fuselage halves. You can see the level of detail is quite nice. The recessed panel lines are not as overly deep as some of the other kits from the same time period from Airfix, and we do have some nice subtle sort of stressed skin on some of the control surfaces. There is a tiny little bit of flash in a few places which will need cleaning up. And perhaps the sprue gates are a little bit chunky, which will need a little bit of care when removing these parts from the sprue. Flipping over to the other side, we can see we've got a little bit of internal detail inside of the cockpit. Cockpit floor is reasonably nicely moulded, and the fine details seem to be quite nicely reproduced. The flash actually, for an older kit from sort of the new kind of Airfix style, this doesn't look too flashy. It's reasonably crisp in the moulding, but there are a few little areas which will need a bit of cleanup. So yeah, not too bad. And then that brings us on to the other sprue, which has the same kind of deal. Plastic is a little bit greasy, a little bit of flex, but it's generally moulded to a good quality, relatively dense feeling. There's our pilot. I believe this is kind of the generic pilot figure that Airfix have used for many years, so he may need a little bit of modification to get him to fit, because not all pilot figures are designed exclusively for each cockpit. On this side here, you can see there are some ejector pin marks, but they are primarily on hidden positions, so we're not going to see those once we've built the kit. A little bit of texturing on the inside of the gear bay wells, and there's our nose cowling. That's moulded reasonably nicely. Pilot seat, again, just be aware of the sprue gates because they are a little bit chunky. Recessed panel lines are nice. Not overly thick again, they match the other sprue. A little bit of stress detail again on the control surfaces. No short shots or anything that I can see. Perhaps maybe this has been under a little bit of stress, and you can see it's come away from the sprue gate here, but with a little bit of sanding that's not going to be a problem. So yeah, generally pretty nice little kit. Not overly complicated. I've built them a couple of times. Generally fits together quite well. I haven't used, I don't remember using filler or anything on my other previous builds of this kit. But yeah, pretty nice. So let's round up. We had 2 sprues in a light grey plastic, which indicates that it might be a slightly older production run because Airfix has switched to a darker grey in more recent years. Moulded to a nice quality, but definitely worth a wash because it's a bit greasy. The clear parts are pretty good as well. Maybe a few little scratches in a few places, but nothing that won't detract from the overall build. One small sheet of decals, quite spaced out. Not that many decals on there, but the decals that are present are printed to a very nice quality. Instructions are to the usual standard from Airfix. Diagrams are easy enough to follow, and we do have some good options in there. We have raised landing gear, lowered landing gear, flaps, not like wing flaps, but like engine flap that can be positioned open or closed, and a pilot. There is the potential to include a display stand, but that is not included. We had 4 paints. The one in the flappy top bottle is perfectly fine, but the one in the sort of older style pots, the Humbrol branded pots, they could be usable, but they're going to need some work to revive them. But I'm probably not going to use them. I'll go for some other paints I've got. Poly cement, perfectly fine to use. Not the best paint in the world, but it'll work. And 1 brush, which, you know, these work okay. All of that comes contained within the gift set box from Airfix, which has our full colour painting and decal placement instructions on the back, which is really good to see. Pretty nice artwork on there, and some other bits and pieces of information too. So a bit of history about this kit. As we saw on the box, this was a 2011 tooling, and as a result has been in the Airfix range pretty much consistently since then. I did build this as the Curtiss Hawk version in the Flying Tigers paint scheme. I also did it as the Pearl Harbor version from the Dogfight double set. I have built one of these Tomahawks in the gift set version before, and I've done the RAF paint scheme one as well. So I've done nearly almost every version that they have produced at some point or another. Because this is a gift set and it contains extra bits and pieces, typically you would be normally looking to spend about £11.99 for a gift set, like on the Airfix website. I don't believe these are currently in stock or in manufacture, but I did pick this up at a discount supermarket here in the UK when they are periodically on sale at different points in the year, and they're normally between sort of £6.99 to sort of £8.99, that sort of price. So they're not overly expensive. This is actually a really good deal for this kind of kit. Of course, it is a little bit more simplified than some of the other releases that they've had in the range, but for that kind of price, it's an absolute bargain. And because I think it's such an absolute bargain, I've actually picked up 2 more of them. So my plan is probably to do one of them in the actual paint scheme here. Just do it kind of out of the box, airbrush it with my own paints because I've got some desert kind of colours. But I do have some decals left over from another build. I think it was the Trumpeter version that I've done, and I'll probably try and do those in that paint scheme, or those 2 paint schemes as well. So it'll be fun to see if I can get all 3 of them done like in one video. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this unboxing review. This is one of my more favourite kits. It's fairly simple to build. It's generally quite well designed. And it's something that I like to come back to, and especially given the low price you can pick these up for, it's great value for money. And with that, I'm going to leave this one here. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of my unboxing review and if my assessment of this kit was fair. Don't forget that we do have a Model Minutes Model Club, and if you'd like to join the Model Club and get exclusive access to early videos and other perks, check out the links in the description. Massive thanks to these guys on screen for the extra support they give the channel, allowing me to create consistent content. There are other ways to help support the channel if you'd prefer, and again, full information is below the video, but the best way to support the channel for free is by subscribing with notifications turned on so you never miss a modelling upload. Finally though, last thing to say is a massive thank you to you for watching this one, and I'll see you on the workbench again next time.